We've heard about Eric Bieniemy, and he's been obviously appointed by a lot of different organizations. He's been interviewing. I think he interviewed 16 times in the last 2 years. Why doesn't Bieniemy have a coaching job yet? Some people thought he was going to get Jacksonville. Jacksonville decided to part ways and give it to Urban Meyer, and then parted ways with Urban Meyer a year later and they gave it to Byron Leftwich. He couldn't pick out his own coaching staff. He goes back to Tampa Bay, and then they hired Doug Peterson. Why hasn't Eric Bieniemy gotten a job?
That's a great question. I mean, I think he's proven himself to be one of the best, if not the best, offensive coordinator in the NFL over the last 4 years at least. So I'm not sure. Maybe he doesn't interview well. It seems like he gets to the interview, they're interested in him, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I haven't sat in the interviews. Does he not interview well? I don't know why it gets to the interview process, and then 16 times he gets turned down. He doesn't have a job. Like, he doesn't have a head coaching job. Nobody's willing to take a shot on him. So it's so many struggling teams in the NFL. You figure somebody would give him a shot.
And so many dysfunctional ownerships. You think, you just take a swing at it. You don't have to do every process the same way you've done it for 20 years.
And Eric Coleman, who's a good friend of mine, who's done a show with me over the last couple of years. We're not doing a show right now because he's on MSG. He does a betting show. Shout out to Eric Coleman. Eric knows Eric Bieniemy very, very well, and he said that Eric Bieniemy would have been the perfect match for the Jets when they were looking for a coach before they hired Robert Saleh. The Jets obviously went with Robert Saleh. Good pick for the Jets. I'm very happy with Robert Saleh. But Eric Bieniemy has interviewed he interviewed, I think, twice for a job with the same organization. I think it was 2018, and then he interviewed again for the same organization in 2020 after they decided to part ways with their coach, and they still didn't hire him.
Right. What's happening in that interview? And I know Eric Coleman. Shouts to Eric. I seen Eric actually a few months ago out on Long Island.
Yes.
At an event. So it was definitely good seeing him. Always good catching up with him, man. Real good guy.
Eric is a good guy, and he's doing his thing out here. He really is. He needed some help with his broadcasting. He decided to do a show on 103.9 with me for a year. We built a good relationship, and he's doing very well on MSG right now. His betting show is doing very well, and shout out to him. He's really jumped. He really has, and I give him a lot of credit. He's worked really, really hard, and he's a good family man, and looking forward to seeing him soon. We're going to be going out to dinner soon, so shout out to Eric Big Daddy Coleman. Anyways.
So are you ever a guest on his show, or he ever a guest on your show?
Come on, listen. I'm gonna tell you the truth. And by the way, we are talking to former Colts and Broncos defensive end and linebacker Darrell Reid. Eric and me, when it comes to debating, Eric, he takes it to a whole nother level. It's like he shifts to something, and he makes me want to throw up, okay? This guy actually tried to compare James Harden to Allen Iverson. This man tried to compare James Harden to the great Allen Iverson. Practice? Who needs practice?
Probably Eric Coleman.
Yeah, Eric Coleman needs practice when he makes he argues a point with me. I mean, seriously, I will tell you this. The man, he's got such a good personality. His personality is up there with the best. But when it comes to debating things, Mr. Reid, he's horrible.
You know who I would compare? Slight, don't get me wrong here. I would compare Oklahoma City Westbrook to Allen Iverson. A little closer.
Really? You really would?
Yeah, just all out effort, always on the floor, getting beat up and still playing through everything. You like Oklahoma City Westbrook and still finishing amongst the bigs, didn't matter. Had that mid-range game. I think Allen Iverson shot it a little bit better.
A lot better. A lot better. And Allen Iverson actually took a really, really bad 76ers team, by the way, with Eric Coleman, if you remember, the big man from Philadelphia. He was probably the second best player on the team. He took that team all the way to the finals. Russell Westbrook played, he played with James Harden. He played with Kevin Durant. He's played with some of the great players. Oh, by the way, he plays with LeBron James, and this guy can't get to the finals and win a finals. So, to me, it's a huge problem.
Oklahoma City. That's why I specifically said Oklahoma City.
Yeah, but even with Oklahoma City, he had Chris Paul on his team too. And he still couldn't win. Actually, was Chris Paul playing?
No,
with
they
him?
were swapped.
That's right. They
other.
were swapped. That's right. I forgot about that. But he had so many good players. He at one point, and they did go to the finals together. They did. But they couldn't get over the hump against the Miami Heat because they had Ray Allen. They had, obviously, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in their prime.
Don't sleep on Eric Snow and Derek McKee, all right?
Stop it. Darrell, come on. Eric Snow. And with the NBA, man, everybody makes it to the Hall of Fame. So I wouldn't be surprised in like 2 or 3 years we see Eric Snow go to the NBA Hall of Fame.
That was a defensive team with Derek McKee and Eric Snow. That right there, you got two like lockdown defenders. You know what I mean?
No, and I like that you know a lot about basketball because Eric Coleman doesn't know much about it. I'm just kidding, Eric. We are talking to former Colts and Broncos defensive end and linebacker Darrell Reid.
So, speaking of great personalities, you played with one in Indianapolis at quarterback, Peyton Manning. Quite a personality, both on the field and off the field. So, what was he like, and do you have a good Peyton Manning story that nobody knows about?
I got so many. And nobody tells them like me. Trust me. People have their Peyton stories, but we all have our own personal stories, right? We have our own personal things that happen, times, when we're out together. And maybe we just remember different times and things like that. But I don't know if we got time for 2 or 3 of them, but I'll give you 2 real quick.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so the first one, first off, Peyton, let me just tell you a little bit about Peyton. Peyton's super competitive. I think all greats, I've learned, all greats are super competitive in and outside of their sports. They're very competitive by nature, and Peyton is super competitive. So I remember that when I first got to Indianapolis. Remember, I was undrafted, right? Mm-hmm. And it was my first week, and it's the off season. We're in the weight room, off season training, and Peyton comes up to me my first week. He goes, "Man, it's a pleasure to have you here." I'm like, "Is he talking to me? I might not be here next week, Like, I'm the last man on the roster." He's like, "No, pleasure to have you here." And I'm like thinking in my head, like, I didn't even know what to say. Like, thanks. Like, what do you say to that, right? The greatest player, like one of the greatest players of all times, obviously the top player on the team comes up and thinks, "Hey, it's good to have you here." I'm like, "What?" So I just froze, and then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm lucky to be here with him, But he just understood his role as a leader on that team, and he really embraced it, and that's one of the things that made that team great. And in the weight room, our entire workout program had to be kind of catered around Peyton. Now, usually any workout program at that level, quarterbacks are not going to be doing the same exercises as D linemen or different positions because they don't need that amount of muscle in their body. But Peyton, if he saw like a D lineman or a lineman doing an exercise that he didn't have on his sheet, he'd go to the weight coach, Coach Terhune, and he'd be like, "Coach, how come I'm not doing that exercise? You want him to be better than me? You want him?" It's like he felt like somebody was getting the edge on him, and he wasn't having it at all. So that whole weight program was like kind of tailored towards Peyton because he had to be able to do everybody else's exercises.
You know what? I love watching the Mannings, especially Peyton Manning, because he when he was on the football field, he was like a god. He was an artist. But when you watch him put on his helmet, it looked like a schoolboy with a bobblehead, okay? He has the biggest head when it comes to watching him with a helmet. He was fantastic. I remember watching him play the Jets. I think it was when the Jets, obviously crawled into the playoffs and then went to the AFC title game. But the Jets had to beat Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And I remember Peyton Manning playing in that game. And I remember him seeing the Jets. You saw the Jets bringing up the blitz. He called where the blitz were coming from, and then he obviously audibled it at the line of scrimmage, and he completely switched the running play to the other side of the field and completely tricked the Jets. And that's how amazing Peyton Manning was. He was phenomenal at reading things at the line of scrimmage, probably the best. And remember, Omaha, and then Eli took it from him after he retired.
Which nobody knows what it actually means.